Welcome back to the final phase of the bull run. We are back to being bullish with Bitcoin currently trading around $110,000 per token. And I just want to say it's been a pretty roller coaster year for cryptocurrency. And certainly here on the channel, I admit I got fairly convinced that we'd actually seen a top for Bitcoin, that the cycle high was likely to be in earlier on this year. And it turns out that the market has had other ideas. Bitcoin has shown great strength, great resilience, and a lot of the risks that have been present for a vast majority of this year seem to be now off the table. We've been hit with tariff talk. We've been hit with the stock market going into bear market corrections, both on the S&P and on the Nasdaq. We've been rocked with massive value extraction on the Solana chain in particular. Donald Trump launching his own meme coin. We've had many rug pulls. We've had many celeb tokens, and yet the market still wants to push higher. Stocks are back at all-time highs. Bitcoin is now on the verge of breaking to new all-time highs, and we are getting liquidity. This is the thing that the market has been lacking for the whole year. We've had restrictive interest rates. We still do have restrictive interest rates, but the other side of the equation is liquidity. Do we actually have the money in the economy to be able to flow into risk assets? And the answer is yes, and we're about to get a lot more of it because now this big, beautiful bill has been passed. This is going to result in liquidity, equivalent of a liquidity injection via tax cuts over the next several years, up to around, I think it's between 3.7 and 5 trillion or something, in terms of being the upper end estimates. And this is equivalent to the stimulus we saw in COVID. Obviously, the difference being the COVID stimulus was very, very short and all injected into the market within the space of a few months. This is going to be over many years, but it is still a massive narrative that is out there now, is that money is going to be coming into the market over the next few years and through these tax breaks. And these are tax breaks on wealthy individuals, investors, businesses, business owners. So these are the people that actually invest their money, have investable income. So long story short, there's going to be more investable income for stock market investors, probably for many crypto investors as well. And this should help lead prices higher over the next few months. Of course, the whole tariff saga as well, that seems off the table. We've had World War III being a risk. That also now seems to be off the table with this Iran-Israel conflict, finding some sort of ceasefire and potential resolution. So things are really starting to look up. And I think for me personally, just the fact that stocks are breaking to new all-time highs and really pushing on, at some point people are going to look at the stock market and say, okay, everything's up, everything's at all-time highs. I'm not comfortable buying things at record highs when valuations are so expensive. I want to find, where can I put my money? I've got money to invest. Bitcoin's at all-time highs. Bitcoin's now at 100, I'm guessing in a few months it could be at 120, 130,000. And I think they'll look along the risk curve into cryptocurrencies, altcoins, and what's been the best performer for the whole of this cycle today? It has been the meme coins. So I'm going to be coming out with some picks in terms of what cryptocurrencies I'm going to be buying. These are going to not be Bitcoin, but these are going to be other altcoins. And to be honest with you, it is going to be the majors, and it is going to be a handful of meme coins. Some of those I've already talked about on the channel back when I was more bullish on the market. Obviously, I'm now revisiting those tokens that I was invested in and looking to scale in, looking to deploy capital back into those tokens again. So firstly, on this video, I'm going to screen share in a moment. I'm going to run through my thoughts on Bitcoin and the broader markets, the traditional markets, obviously the majors, and then I think I'll probably either, well, at the end of this video, I'll probably touch on my major holdings, my key holdings in terms of cryptocurrency. And then when it comes to actually looking at meme coins, I'm still actually going through a research process, but I will actually share my top altcoin picks in probably a separate video. So let's just get into Bitcoin then. And as you can see, Bitcoin breaking out from this bull flag that we found ourselves in. And yeah, I mean, this for me is a legit breakout. If we're closing multiple daily candles above, call it 108,500. I mean, this breakout here, yeah, is pretty much 108,670. Then we are bullish. We are closing above these highs here. We are testing these highs from the summer of this year, or should I say, we're still in the summer, but May, June highs. So look, we just really need to clear this 112K, and things are going to be looking really, really good for Bitcoin. Very, very strong, very powerful. And look, if we can close out this week where we are right now, you can see on a weekly chart, things are just looking very, very strong and very bullish here. So I don't think there's anything to be concerned about. I think the main concern would be that the market before the end of the week actually loses this trend line here. But as long as we hold this and stay above it, then I would expect us to move on to higher prices over the next few days and weeks. And if we just go over to our other chart that we have a path on, this is pretty much what I'm expecting. Probably a rally into the end of July, maybe some corrective price action in August or September. I actually think we could continue to rally in August. Just seen some data earlier, which actually shows in post-halving years, summers are usually very, very good. We saw a very strong summer, a strong July, August back in 2017. We saw the same in 2021. Now in 2025, do we get a really strong accelerated sort of summer period, and do we actually follow a path a little bit more like this into a top later on in the year? That is actually what I'm thinking. And I know this might seem a little bit aggressive for some people, but I think we could see something like this rally into July, August, pull back in September, and off we go again into an eventual high, maybe late October, November time. And from there, that I think would be the cycle top. And this probably could happen into the first rate cut. This could happen, well, probably will happen around some sort of massive euphoric news that usually accompanies these cycle highs. Obviously, going back to 2017, it was the launch of the CME futures. Back in 2021, it was the Coinbase listing, and obviously the whole Bitcoin treasury with micro strategy. Now it seems to be Bitcoin treasury companies really going mainstream, and yeah, I'm potentially looking at something like this, and I think a target for the bear market really sort of between 40 and 50,000. I think would be an absolute godsend if we actually got there. Would be an incredible place to be able to load up. Maybe we don't actually get that low. Maybe we just sort of sweep the previous sort of all-time highs around about 69,000, sort of coming down and testing in this area. But that would be what I'd love to see at some point next year if we ever got it. But I think we will accelerate into the end of the year. I do have a more, should we say, less aggressive path that would actually be if we did reject this level and we see a summer of chop and consolidation similar to what we saw last summer before busting on higher. But I think this is, maybe people are expecting this a bit too much. Maybe people are expecting just more consolidation, one more dip. And I don't know if this market gives everybody what they want this time around and gives people that much time to actually load up. I think this market is really ready to go, and a lot of this is driven by what is happening in the stock market. Before we go over to the stock market, I'll just take a really quick look at the liquidity heat maps as well. So let's just wait for this to load up. So this is obviously the liquidation heat map. This shows us where traders have their liquidation levels and where they're likely to get wiped out, i.e. taken out of their longs or shorts. And we can see shorts continue to pile in here. And we've got a lot of liquidity building just above 110,000, 111,000, all the way up to around 112,000. So that would put us at a new all-time high if the market really wanted to accelerate and make a run for it. I think we could be at 112,000 very quickly. Certainly, if we get above this 100 and yeah, 110,500, call it, which is, I think it is around the current sort of most recent high is 110,500, yeah, 110,600. So, yeah, in the short term, that's where I'd be looking for Bitcoin to trade above to then make a shot at an all-time high. And obviously, I think we probably quite quickly come up to 115,000, and then we'd be looking for probably some acceleration once we get above these all-time highs into price discovery. And I think 120,000 will come quite quickly. So let's see if that happens over the weekend. Obviously, on the back of this big, beautiful bill passing today in the House. Let's see. Obviously, the traditional markets, stock markets are closed for the long weekend. So it's only really crypto that's open. And if traders wanted to speculate on that result and position, it's likely they would have to position into crypto. And maybe that is what we see. Certainly, Bitcoin could consolidate a bit longer here and maybe even give altcoins a chance to catch up. I think just before we move on to stocks, just looking at crypto and looking at altcoins, we can see this is Bitcoin dominance. This is a path I've had drawn on Bitcoin dominance for some time now. Obviously, it starts back in March, so I think I probably would have drawn it back in March. And this is obviously when I personally was getting very cynical and skeptical of the altcoin space and was saying, look, I just think Bitcoin is going to continue to march higher above 70%. And I mean, so far it has continued this path up. If we actually look at the longer term chart, we can actually see this is where Bitcoin rejected from back in 2020 to 2021, which was obviously the last sort of final year of the previous bull run. So do we get a rejection up here at around 73% this time around? And does the price then start to roll over and go lower? Obviously, time will tell, but that's great. I've just lost my browser. So yeah, let's see if I can get this to load back up. And whilst we wait for that to load up, then yeah, I think a lot of people are really, really writing off alt season at the moment. And I just feel like people are either giving up or they're unpositioned. And this is why I think that we could get this big run in alts at some point this year. I really, really do think that that is something that we could see. So let's see. Let's see if Bitcoin does go a bit higher. Potentially, Bitcoin breaks out and sort of leaves the altcoins in its dust for at least a few more percent higher on the Bitcoin dominance, and then we actually see this reversal from around the 70% mark. I mean, that is kind of what I'm expecting to happen, and that we do eventually get that rotation into alts at the end of the year. So, yeah, potentially what that would look like is obviously a push higher towards that 70% level. Maybe we don't exactly get there. Maybe we sort of front run it. We're coming into the 786 fib at the moment. So potentially we wick a little bit higher, sort of 69, 70% and then roll over. But I do think at some point it will happen. At some point alts will sort of really, really get their day in the sun and we'll see this big move. We'll see this big breakdown. I think at least this will go to around sort of 50% on the actual fib retracement and maybe actually down to 50% dominance, but that would obviously look something like this. And yeah, unfortunately having laptop problems, I'm in the process of changing my laptop, but this one still fairly slow, and it does make making videos a little bit more tricky, as you can tell. But yeah, I think we can come into this 50% level. And maybe if I go to the weekly, it's a bit easier to visualize. There we go. So something like this, potentially we sort of come down all the way. But yeah, I think most of us would take that, right? Most of us that are in altcoins would probably take something like this. Like I say, maybe it doesn't go all the way up to this level. Maybe that gets front run. But I think at some point we can sort of see a move, something like this, going into the end of this year. Obviously, this has it going out to 2026. It would, yeah, it would go a lot quicker than that. It would pretty much be a vertical move down. So that is Bitcoin and obviously altcoins. Just, I'm not going to get into individual altcoins on this video because I want this to be a fairly quick one, just a short update in terms of my current thoughts. But we can see this is the real driver. This is one of the really big drivers for me. This is the S&P 500 in terms of what's going on here. As you can see, we have been up and away, and currently at new all-time highs. I did predict all-time highs for stocks, so I'm pretty happy with that one. At least I said that this would probably follow Bitcoin in terms of Bitcoin making new all-time highs this summer. Obviously, it already did. It looks like it's going to again, and the stock market following. Whether we get this consolidation and pullback, I'm really not too sure. I think one potential scenario is that the market, certainly off the back of this big, beautiful bill, actually really starts to run away. It could come up here to around about 6,400. Potentially, we get a more shallow retest coming back within the previous all-time highs, only to then run up for a final high at the end of the year. So I think something like this could happen. Maybe this, is a run into interest rate cuts. But yeah, I mean, super strong stock market looking super strong. Nasdaq, just looking on the daily on the Nasdaq, we've recently had a golden cross as well. So, which I believe is the 50 crossing over the 200. It's the 200 or the 100, but I think it's the 50 crossing over the 200. So that is the red crossing over this green. And if we just look at the last time we've seen this golden cross happen, we haven't had too many of them, but we basically have one here, which resulted in massive upside, and I believe the one before that came sort of back here, which again resulted in some sort of huge upside afterwards. So yeah, I think look, this is a super bullish signal. Obviously, V-shaped reversal. This has caught a lot of people out. A lot of hedge funds, a lot of institutions have been not positioned for this, or they've been positioned short. They are currently getting squeezed, and I think dips will be fairly shallow and they will get bought up fairly quickly. And it's likely that we sort of push on to higher prices without too much of a large dip, and we see this acceleration into potentially what could be the end of the cycle as we know it in terms of this bull market, or at least in terms of the crypto cycle. I think we could see things just getting carried away. The market going up too fast, things getting too aggressive, things going too risk on, and then it just needs a sort of time and or price based correction over many months just to kind of reset things before it goes again. And like I say, potentially that comes off the back of worsening employment figures. It could be reinflation, but something I think at some point will spook the markets, and potentially people expecting or too bullish on interest rates having an immediate effect. Potentially we sell off whilst the Fed are cutting rates. Potentially AI is starting to replace too many jobs, and and unemployment becomes a problem, and it starts to get out of control. There's all these sorts of risks that are out there on the horizon that potentially could come into play next year. But I think where we are here and now is, full steam ahead. We're off to the races. It's very much risk on, and I'm expecting this probably to culminate in some sort of blow off later on this year. That is for stocks. That is also for Bitcoin and cryptos. like I say, expecting this path. I think this is the first path that I've drawn on this one to pretty much follow. Yeah, and without giving too much away, obviously I'll make a separate video on alts, but I'm thinking Ethereum probably really gets going. Whether we actually get this pullback, this is very much based on a choppy summer for Bitcoin. If we end up having a choppy summer for crypto, something like this will happen. But ultimately, I think Ethereum comes up to 4,000 or just shy of 4,000 before the end of the year. So any dips for me are going to be a buy. Solana as well. I think you've got to stick to the majors. Certainly, I think Solana, very messy charts. I'll get this cleared up, but I think Solana comes back up to around about this sort of 2,200 level. I think if we can get back above sort of 185, 190, then we can be back up towards 220, 230, and maybe this 234, which I think was 234 a significant number previously. I'm just trying to think why I've got that line on there. I think it was from sort of the breakdown earlier on, but yeah, potentially I could see us getting back up towards all-time highs, towards 260. So obviously any dips, I mean, if we came back down to 130, for me that would be a great entry because you're looking at a double, then up to 260. But I think that's where Solana probably wants to go. Sui as well. I think Sui can get a move on and sort of head back to its all-time highs around about sort of $5. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Maybe at a strength we get up to six. Obviously, Sui being a newer token. And then there's another one I really like. There's actually a couple more here that I really like. One is S. So this is Sonic, previously known as Phantom, and look, we've had basically this falling wedge which has sort of hit the low part of it. It started to break down. We've seen this deviation, and if S can get back above this 0.37 and break out from this descending trend line, I think this can absolutely rock it. So this is one that I'm positioning heavily into right now. I think this can get up to $1, and you're looking at least a 3x just back to $1. Potentially, it goes on further from there. So that's one pick I'll give you in the video today. I also like Near as well. The tokenomics, even though Near is slightly inflationary, its tokenomics are not as bad as some of the other L1s out there. And again, this has been really beaten up. It's actually pretty much at its lows for the year, as with S. These tokens, you're getting in at great entries. I mean, the risk of this going lower really is mitigated at these prices, and obviously you've got a lot of upside there. Pretty much a 4x just to get back to the cycle highs, and who knows if it makes a new all-time high. Obviously, it can go on from there. I'm not calling for that, but I'm just saying the risk to reward of these tokens, especially if Bitcoin can hold this breakout, is particularly good. And just looking at some other tokens, memes that I really like, WOJAK. Again, you're looking at almost a 5x back up to its cycle highs. WOJAK is a token that I definitely think as a meme is undervalued. But in any scenario, if the market goes fully risk on, I would expect it to get back to all-time highs. And as a minimum, maybe it won't push on from there, but it should at least get back there. And if we actually look at what this is in terms of a return, you can see a 300% return. So, that's going to be your 4x essentially. We'll see 100% of 2x, 200% 3x, 300% 4x. So, yeah, I mean, there you have it. Like I say, the market is poised. The situation is all is set up. We've had a bounce in the dollar, yet the markets are remaining strong. The dollar coming into critical support here. Just if we kind of go back, you can actually see that the dollar is on a massive sort of weekly, actually not even a weekly, like a multi-year trend line here. This goes all the way back to, well, goes very far back. Goes way back. Let's go on a weekly chart so we can actually see that. But yeah, it kind of goes back to 2011, it looks like. So yeah, I mean, we're at a big inflection point. Obviously, if the dollar loses this level, that will really confirm massive risk on. And I think that is probably likely. It probably does come down over the course of the rest of this year. But I would expect a little bit of a bounce here. So potentially a little bit of chop in the markets until this breaks down. Gold also has been the ultimate risk off trade. That is now starting to look like it's topped. We can see here just on a shorter time frame, gold starting to lose its trend here. Let me clean this up, a couple of these Fibonacci's. But yeah, bearish engulfing today. And I wouldn't be surprised if gold does come down towards 3,200, potentially down to 3,000 by the end of the year. And obviously that capital has to rotate somewhere. And I think that capital will be rotating into stocks, rotating into crypto. And yeah, I mean, what can I say? Just to wrap things up then, things are looking really good. We're back to bullish. Bitcoin is breaking out as we speak. Final confirmation is going to come with us clearing this 112. Like I say, there's plenty of liquidity to run in between here and 112. If we get above this high that we made today at around about 1,000, was it 10? Where was it? Yeah, 110,590. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to cover in today's video. And like I say, I've covered a few altcoins there. There'll be more altcoins that I want to cover with you, which will be more probably more meme coin focused, more low cap focused, things that are positioned into that I think can really outperform the market and outperform some of the majors going into this final phase when, let's be honest, we tend to see the most crazy moves. And it's just crazy to me how everything is now starting to line up. All the stars are starting to align for us to get this explosive end to this year. That's why I'm positioning back in. Obviously, I put a video out at the weekend. It went on my X account. So follow me at X for, I guess, more, sort of time sensitive updates. But it went out on my YouTube as well, just done in the garden here, talking about getting back into the market. And since then, the market has started to mark up and things are starting to push up and things are starting to look good. So I'm pretty confident here. I'm probably the most confident I've been this year by far that we are actually going to see some higher prices going into the end of this year. And yeah, I don't think you want to be complacent. I don't think you want to be sort of waiting around, waiting too long for more dips or more confirmation. Usually it's at this part in the cycle where it starts to accelerate and things start to get aggressive. Dips are starting to get more shallow. Dips are starting to get bought up more aggressively. And like I say, with the stock market pushing through all-time highs, we are in that risk on environment that, we need to see really to see any sort of massive move in crypto and certainly if we're going to get an alt season. So the ingredients are there. Let's see if we can make it. I think we can. Obviously, thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting the channel. Certainly, if you got to the end, I really appreciate that. Do smash the like if you've liked this video. I'll be coming out with an update very soon in terms of altcoins that I'm going to be positioning into. I've pretty much come up with like a 10 altcoin portfolio. So I'll try and get that video done tomorrow and share it, or at least over the weekend. And yeah, have a fantastic rest of your day wherever you are. And I'll talk to you all on the next one. Bye for now.